I'm Renee Ballard, a design strategist and the host of Let's Talk Design, where we talk to all the creators and the creatives about the business of design. Welcome today to Ruby Shields. Hi, Ruby.
Hi, how you going?
Good, how are you?
I'm so fabulous.
So let me tell you about Ruby. Ruby Shields is an interior designer based in Naarm, Melbourne. She originally started her career in advertising, and she draws on that experience as a former art director and brings precision and creative insight into her design process. Making a big impact in a short time, Ruby has won the 37th Dulux Colour Awards in the design category and was a two-time finalist in the 38th Dulux Awards. She was also honoured as a Design Institute of Australia Graduate of the Year and named in the 30 Under 30 2023 cohort. Since joining the interior design industry, Ruby has quickly become known for her fearless use of colour, for incorporating her signature rich textures, and for her ability to create striking sculptural forms within the built environment. Thank you for joining us, Ruby.
I sound so sophisticated.
I know, light up a cigarette.
I know. She hasn't even gone full throttle yet. No.
And I'm only warming up. Just for a bit of context, a bit of background, back in 2023 at RMIT, our paths crossed at a folio review session. And personally, I was immediately struck by Ruby's good looks. I can't lie. She's styled to the T. Also, I could sense, and she, you could feel that Ruby had had a life before design, and that doesn't always happen. Sometimes once a designer, always a designer, and there's no deviation, and then sometimes you can chop and change within the industries. So since then, I've been watching Ruby's galloping career speed through the design industry, which is fabulous. So she was a natural fit, of course, to talk today. So yeah, great to see you again.
I don't know about good looks. Don't know.
I'll take all the compliments you can get from the future, from an old person. Gather them up.
Gather them up, just collect them.
So, advertising industry to the design industry. Can you tell me about the timeline?
Oh, okay. It was a very hard and fast timeline, I must admit. So, since I was 15, I always wanted to be an interior designer, and then life led me in a different path. I got into advertising because I was watching Mad Men at the time, which is not a really great reflection on me of me watching Mad Men, because maybe it was like just the overall design of it and, the fast track of like pitching and this and that. And I was like, advertising seems fun, not even fully considering it. I'm a country girl. So mind you, there's no background in marketing or understanding what I was stepping into. So I jumped into advertising without fully understanding the breadth of it. And I was there for 5.5 years, nearly 6. I changed over careers into like Melbourne's top agency. And I was there for 7 months, and I got married and I changed my name, and then I cut all my hair off because I had really long, gorgeous blonde hair. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to cut it all off and dye it red. And I was like, and now's the time to change careers. So it was a very fast, all right, this is the moment, I'm going to do it now. This is like hands down, I'm submitting my portfolio, I'm getting in. I think I resigned. Obviously, you have to give a month's notice. My finishing up date was like the 4th of July or the 28th of June or something. And then I hit uni on the 7th of July. So it was like, when you're doing something that is so big of leaving a career, you kind of just need to do it so fast that you don't have time to consider. Like full speed ahead, there's no turning back. You better go or you're going to hop out.
Yes. Big fan of that. That has taken me to living in New Zealand, Dubai, Hong Kong, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, the Outback. So yes, I'm a big advocate for no time to explain, get on the llama.
Yeah. I think that's just what makes life interesting at the end of the day. Like if you sit there and, there's this really good quote, we'll come back to it because I'll need to dig it out, from a TV show that I was recently watching, and the way that she summarized it in her monologue at the end was just superb. I'll find it when we get into the next question.
So, Gosmi, with the advertising industry and the design industry, what are your insights and experiences into the differences and or the similarities between the two?
There is I was going into interiors because I wanted to do it for so long. I was like, I feel like I've wasted 8 years of my life doing marketing. You have that doubt first off. And then as I started, I realized how many transferable skills there are across both of them. So, like in advertising, for instance, you both have clients, we have briefs, we present concepts back to the clients, and then they give feedback on the approach. And then from there, you rock up into design development, essentially in interior terms, design development, an overall approach of the concept that you've presented. And then you're nutting out all of the details. And then it's like shoot day. And then you're executing that through to all of the EDMs, web banners, TV commercials, all of that. So it was a good feeling to know that there were so many similarities, but I was also quite shocked to how similar they were. There's such a freedom that kind of shocked me the most. The sky is honestly the limit in advertising. You get a brief from a client and then you can go any which way for that. Like, that is wild. So yeah, having that ability to stretch that far was pretty awesome, because I had to really think on that question. I really had to think on that question because I was like, what are the differences between them? Obviously, one's driven by marketing and pursuit of money, and the other one's, purely on making people feel good in spaces. So I feel like those are the main
interesting emotion. Because so my background many moons ago, I used to work media operator side in Marcoms, and then I was in social media consultancy, and then we started Lex. So I get what you mean exactly. Certainly, like the agency model is very similar. The brief, the back and forth variations. To me, what I think advertising has a bit more down the, because advertising is just that much more commercial. There's that much more like money involved, like a lot more zeros, and what advertising I think does really well, and I'm not saying it affects the outcome or not, this is very contentious within the industry, but what I think it does very well pitch-wise, personality-wise, is it backs it up with data. So you can have a great idea, but it's got to be underpinned with something. It's got, the indexing and all that kind of stuff. And design doesn't have to have that, but it's one of the greatest things. I noticed that when you talked about your stitching in historical references and things, and I'm always this when we have, new staff and junior like designers come on, I'm like, you can just be like, let's just do like baby blue. Like you can just say that, but the client's gonna be like, fuck, well, why not green? Like that.
Exactly.
So we work in retail design, which has more boundaries, which makes it harder and easier. Yeah. But if we're doing a Cadbury store, I'm never going to pitch pink, am I? Like it's going to be purple.
Yeah.
So so there's that. But if I do want to come in with mauve, I need to underpin it with, did Bourneville have that back in the UK when they started? Like, is it a junior range? So to me, I think that's a real difference between the industries.
Yeah, that is a really good point. And funnily enough, I wouldn't have picked that to be the thing, but it totally is. But because I underpin all of my design decisions by like pulling it back to a reference or a narrative is how I like to design. So yeah, but you're so right, because there are so many, designers out there that do just go, hey, it's going to be baby blue. And it's like, well, but why? Or it's just going to be that shape. And it's like, but what story is that shape telling? Like why is it a curve and not an angle kind of situation?
Exactly. I think, if you are a top shot, like hot shot designer, that you've got this fancy ass name, then you can come in and you just like, it's all going to be, let's cover it all in sandstone. Everyone's like, oh, as you wish. Before that, because we get, when we're brainstorming and stuff, especially younger staff will be, I shouldn't pick on age actually, but some, you can work with designers and they're like, well, this is cool. I'm like, cool's not enough.
Yeah,
cool's where we start. Like, then what happened? Cool's easy.
But it's also, I feel like having the tangible element of tying it to a narrative or tying it to a meaning of something, that's what brings design out. That's what weaves in and creates a beautiful story. For instance, I'm doing a collab at the moment with Objects for Thought, who are an up-and-coming lighting company, and they chose me to do their interiors for them because we're both up-and-coming, which is really beautiful. We're living in render world, obviously, because we both don't have the money to full create, but we can pay someone to make something look beautiful. But we're doing a sound bar, and my main thought around that was I want all the materials that I choose to feel like the music has impacted them and therefore that they're moving to a sound. So the boys, we had a little feedback session this morning and they were like, why did you choose those tiles? And I was like, because the tiles, they're from Arte Domus and they're bloody stunning, but they all jut out and they all have like this interest to them. And I was like, that's like if jazz music was playing and a simple like a simple brick wall then was just like, oh, I like this sound. And it just pops out. And he was like, oh my God, Ruby, you thought of everything.
You're like, thank you. You are welcome.
You are
welcome to my head.
But yeah, it's because that's what's layering the design and making it so interesting and thought-provoking.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's great as designers to be able to cerebrally explain that to the client. And what is great, so I know you're in residential, so you're B2C and I'm in commercial, so B2B. So it's a little bit different, but end consumer wise, the human in the built environment, you can certainly, a customer or a person can feel, they might not be able to put their finger on it, but you know when you're walking on carpet tiles and you know when you feel underlay. I mean, carpet tiles with no underlays, my feet are just sad and cross. You know, from the bottom up, I'm just like, oh, sucks to be me. And then you hit the underlay carpet and you're like, oh, what is this luxury textile?
Oh, they have done themselves well here.
Is that money I smell?
Yeah. But it does make the difference. Like all of those little, thoughts that go into it and that attention to detail is just, yeah.
Yeah. 100%. I think that's the best. It's good. Like, I think if I was thinking about like what makes a good designer, and I think my number one, I don't know where you fare on this, it'd be good to hear, but my number one is curiosity. It makes a great designer. And my number two is the details. Ideally, obsessive is where you want to be.
Yeah. I want to throw in passion. I think if you don't have passion, then you can't sell something. Like if you're not feeling it, it will fall flat. One of my favorite things is going down, and I've talked about this before so many times, of like, even at uni, I used to sit at my computer and drink a bottle of wine, but go on absolute rabbit holes to find materials and, pieces of furniture that no one, unless you're like really digging, would seek to find. And then collating all that and having a really good bank of just yumminess. And that's the curiosity that I think is really important of, not only curiosity in history and understanding all of the genres, or not even all of the genres, but like at least having key parts of going, I know who that is and where that design influence comes from. But, seeking out that curiosity of materials and good pieces of furniture and artists. And
yeah, it's funny. I did an episode on this, on a bit of a tangent, but like 2025 design predictions. And I was talking about AI and how we're going to see that we're seeing that already in retail design. I can tell you an AI design store for a few reasons, but one is everything's becoming very sophisticated. A lot of curves, brass archways, a lot of stone, because AI is sipping from the same internet cup. So bless it, but the internet's only 50 years old, and nobody uploaded all the books to it. So all we have left is the books from ye olden days. But there's about 2,000, 4,000 years worth of design trends, not on those 50 years of internets. So once, and like I couldn't agree with you more, like taking that deep dive and then taking it to books, like the older books, these design books with, it's so exquisite. And then because you see stuff, like, so I have a 10-year-old and she'll be singing a song, like the Jolene's been covered by Dolly Parton, and she'll be singing the new one. And I'm like, clutch my pearls, like I could, you should, oh my goodness, how did this happen? Because, like because there's cool stuff that happened, but you have to go and find it. So I love that you're digging that out.
No, it's because then you have a point of difference, which I think is like one of advertising's really amazing things is that when you're working on a brand, usually they do have a unique selling proposition, but sometimes they don't. You need to seek that out. And all the brands are quite different. But when you're starting off and you're developing a full campaign for it, you find that unique selling proposition. Like you're seeking that out because that's what's making you different to the rest of the market. And I think like I have tried so bloody hard to make sure that when you cross me, I am a little bit of all of my favorite designers because you're always influenced by them. Like you can't not be. But I am a little bit more of a step away that has my unique twist. So then it still feels fresh. Like, we can't all be unique, obviously, because, everyone's done it in some sort of way. But yeah, trying to find, I think that's what advertising does also really well, is has that unique selling proposition. And that's what makes something different. And I feel like designers need to seek that out through curiosity, out through reading books, or being passionate, or finding, a unique thing that's just like, oh, that's my little piece of identity per se.
And it's a really great way of looking at it as well, because, yeah, I mean, it's not so much that anyone's copying or even appropriating, but you can't reinvent red. It's just red.
Yeah.
But applying it, it's mixing it up, mixing, matching, applying it in a new fashion is just so exciting. And then nailing it is, how do you know when it's done? How do you step away from the project, the mood board, the palette?
I think it's so hard. It is so hard stepping away from something. But I think it's just like, one of the things that I guess I learned in advertising is that there's always a deadline. So I race for a deadline. I'm like a real stickler for like hands off, step away, ready, steady, cool vibes. No, hands up. It's like, because it could go on forever if you wanted to continue tweaking something. Like, ideas are endless. You could start in one corner, and then by the time you get to the next corner, you could just bloody loop around and then start again. But I think, because we're all on time constraints and we're on client money, it is irresponsible for us to continually change it. Like, if you're happy, you just need to know that you're happy.
Yeah. I think that's one of the greatest things with collaborating with clients. And I don't use the word collaborate lightly, because collaborating is way harder than it sounds, and everyone pretends it's enjoyable. And when it's right, it is. And the rest of the 90% of the time, it's just hard. I think it's when your own project, maybe it's harder to say goodbye, because when it's with the client, because sometimes, the client says, they want this, and you're like, got it, and this is what you need. And you just feel it.
Yeah, 100%. I'm working on a client in Mount Eliza, and they came to me with a few things, and they were like, but you can change them if you want. And I was like, but you've already had that emotional connection to them, and they're actually really good, the materials that you selected. So I don't necessarily want to change them just for the sake of changing it. Because I feel like, why would you change it if that just, no. It's not out of laziness. It's just out of like, I really enjoy them, and, what you've selected is really good, and I can just riff off that and find other elements that talk to it at the end of the day. But going to the personal project, like, if I'm completely honest, we're in our 7th year of renovating our house. And now we're re-renovating it, to my husband's dismay, because he is a carpenter and he does all of it. But I've promised that this is the last time. Like this, yeah, 100% the last time.
No.
The last time that the fingers are behind the back and they're crossed, and you're like, yeah, it's the last time.
Well, if you're married to a chippy, that's a guarantee to never get divorced, because you don't want to pay for one of those.
No. Oh my God, no, never. Exactly. That'd be the worst. I think that'd be the biggest shock if I had to pay.
Yeah, 100%. We're renovating our house at the moment. The same with us. Like, with the client, I'm like, bang, this is what you need. That's the color palette. I can feel it. This meets the brief, blah, blah, blah. When it's myself, I'm like, oh my God, the tiles. I get obsessed with the tiles because of the grid, the grout, the linings, the big swing, big hit with the shape and the like contrast and stuff. And then there's the finishes, and need to shake that off. Since joining the design industry, may I ask, what's been the biggest thrill?
There is so many thrills that I've had. I think there's a couple of things. The biggest thrill is fucking love doing what I do. Like, there is no denying that I wake up every day and I have just the biggest smile on my face, because I'm like, oh my God, what's today gonna bring? Or like when you make a mood board, or you see the render of the design that you've been working on, and you're like, oh my God, did I do that? And not in a cocky way, but you just like, oh my God, that was me. I had that moment this morning where all these renders are coming through for the collab that I'm doing, and I'm like sitting here and I'm picking at them, and I'm like, this needs to move like a little bit, and then I got totally way too art directory, and I'm like, this just needs to move like 20 mil this way, but I'm like, I just want it to be pretty spot on. But seeing those things, you're like, oh my God, there's so many opportunities and there's so many different things that you can do. And it's just like forever. Like, so I think that's like the biggest thrill of just, loving what I'm doing. But, the other thing is like the people. I feel like everyone has a different experience, but I've just had such an amazing welcoming into the community of the design industry. Like, you just meet the most talented people and then feed off them. Like, I've been chatting to Hot House, Amanda, who's like the director of like blowing all the glass and stuff. And we went out for drinks and we were like, yeah, and then we could do like this. And then what if we did that? And it's just like, that ability to just absorb the energy of other people and then push that energy out. And you're just like, oh, it's just so good. I just love it. And then just to be privileged to be a part of all of those people that I admire so much, because like they're so talented. Like they're doing amazing things. YSG the other day sent me a message and she was like, congrats on starting your business. And I was like, do you know how much that means? Like for you to take 30 seconds out of your day to just be like, hey, congrats to you. It's like, please stop. I just feel like so honored to be, around those people. And then, yeah, just the people and loving what I'm doing and just the thrill of just finding good things and making good things. And then it's just like, yeah, sorry, there's too many thrills. I'm like,
oh, no, that's delightful to these jaded old ears. I'm like, we're talking about the same industry. Yeah. But of course, as well, because you're bringing in this fresh, joyous energy of the embrace. And I think what's great about switching careers from something else into design is, or into anything, I suppose, but you come at it full throttle, as in, I really, really, really chose this and I've been elsewhere. It's wonderful to hear your enthusiasm. Like, my God, I could inhale that like an old lady vampire. Yeah, it's great that you're finding that energy in Melbourne. That's really, really fun.
It's just such a good community of people and things and exhibitions, and we're like people are constantly trying to push the boundaries, and I just find that so interesting and like yummy. I just like want to absorb it all the time.
Yeah, definitely. And I assume with internationalization or a bit of AI, I think as well, naturally social media, Australia's getting, like the interiors are getting better looking.
Yeah.
So I was born in 78, and so I, grew up in houses that had bathrooms that were 50 years old. I grew up through the 90s, which was one of the saddest design periods of Australia ever. And still, because of, Australian frugality, it's still going strong, as in, box apartments with no cornices, and we're going to call it modernism, cut any corner you can to save costs kind of vibes. But now I think because of, and, this is, and you wouldn't say this many design circles, it's not cool dude, but shows like Real Housewives, Dubai Bling, Selling Manhattan, they are showing us overseas stuff. And I think for the first time in Australia, about the past 10 years, I feel like we're allowed to have pretty stuff and we're allowed to be okay with that. Whereas before it was just carpet tiles.
Yeah, the minimum, the bare minimum. Isn't that interesting though, that like we were so, in some essence, so deprived of design? And I guess it was only like the mid-century, and the Victorian, we'd have to, because Melbourne's full of those beautiful Victorian houses where they spent the time and they spent, money and details. And then there's the gorgeous, Eltham and Glen Iris, mid-century houses. And then everything in between that is just like a white box.
Yeah, it's tricky as well. There are eras, and many years ago we had a little workers' cottage down in Collingwood. And, Collingwood, it's a multi-zone, industrial, residential, commercial, manufacturing was down there, and tanneries and abattoirs and all sorts. So, our backyard was full of like old horseshoes and things, because really, and it's built at the same, we sold it, but it was built at footpath level, because it was just built on dirt. But even that had cornices, even that had ceiling roses, even that had a couple of corbels here and there. And then we just went through a lull where all ornateness got taken out of our design. And so it's so exciting to me to watch people like you who are championing residential interiors to feel warm and welcoming and loved and layered.
Yeah. Loved is a huge thing. If I can make someone's space feel like someone has made it with love, then like my job is done. I don't really mind whatever they put in it, as long as they go, oh my God, it was designed with someone who had a full heart and gave me their full heart. So done.
And it's tremendous. And you're so brave because so with retail design, we get the brief and it's quite strict. Well, in a way, it's strict because there's a lot of stakeholders. You know, we've got RDNs, landlords, investors, the customer, production, operations, logistics, CEOs, boards, brand marketing. Like we've got, you know, it's a lot of people at the design table. And there's a lot of figures that drive it, which is quite good, a bit more like advertising. It's a bit more like a, you know, tight, hard brief, which makes it fun because I like, you know, more challenges, the easier it is to design because it's like playing Pong. It's like floor is lava. Residential, because I have a residence, so I know what I'm like. Oh my goodness, I think you're amazing that you go like, because you have to feel like, because, you know, I always talk about the brief behind the brief. So, you know, a client can be saying, you know, I want to rebrand, like in advertising, I want to rebrand. And you're like, oh, and they're like, I want to be radical. And you're like, and then you end up doing Arial font instead of Helvetica. Like, you know, so you've got to feel like, what is the real brief?
Oh, I didn't actually really want to rebrand. I guess I wanted to stick what I was doing, but I just wanted a couple of new photos. And it's like, really? Really? Come on. I've had so many clients in advertising do that to me. And I'm just like, why? Why did you waste my time? You could have just been extra prescriptive. And then we could have spent that time doing something amazing to actually answer anyway.
Yeah, I call the brief behind the brief. And that's one, I mean, it's my favorite thing is just, I call it full body listening. And I'm like, I get the brief, but what's the real brief? And I sat once many years ago, I worked for which was an outdoor company. And we used to do this magazine and Frost Design did it. And I was sitting in a boardroom with Vince and Cash, I think it was. I don't know if you know Kat, but she's a strategist, very fancy, like very high level, amazing strategist. And I was so intimidated. And then I kind of got a little over being intimidated. And she said to me, and so who's the target audience for like gung, 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 gung questions? Who's the target audience for this? And I was like, my boss, because I want to impress him. And, you know, I was like, here's the real brief. I have a CMO I need to impress. It's going out to our VIP customers, but I really just want to impress him. So, and that's when I was like, that's the brief behind the brief.
Yeah.
And how do you do that in residential?
I think it's just being in tune with the person and then kind of picking up what their most emotional reaction is to. You know, for instance, this is a sofa that I like. And then over in the corner, they've got this chair and it's like, oh, that was grandma's chair. And, you know, grandma gave it to me, but like, we don't really need to keep it. I really like the fabric though, but the fabric's just like real daggy. It's like, no, that chair means so much more to you. And then the fabric, like that's got some amazing color. Let's pull out the color. Let's like design the whole space around that. I think that's like, it's the emotional connection that people have and you just have to seek that out rather than what they think. What I find is some clients tell you what they think you want to hear. And it's like, I love that for you. Thank you so much for considering me. But at the end of the day, something that like I stand so strongly by is that I am not living in that house. I'm coming in and I'm designing but I'm not living in it. I'm not sleeping in it every day. I'm not going to be there for the next 10 years. You are. So like, how do you want it to feel? How do you want to move around the kitchen? I don't know if you want like a spice drawer like mine, but I can give you a spice drawer if you like to cook. It's having that empathy, which I think depending on where you work and who you work for and what business you're in, it's so important to have the empathy and the understanding.
That is so clever. And even when you're talking, I could see as you were enacting out the parts in the conversation, I could see, you know, your eyes were rolling at some points and other points you're leaning forward, you're leaning back. So you're reading all of that in residential.
Yeah, you're trying to pick up on all of those bits and pieces, all of those little, you know, nuances that people do. And yeah, and their overall just reaction, I think, is so important.
Yeah. But it's hard though as well because with residential, I don't know if this is just me, but being brave is tough. Like, you know, like just, I don't know, it's this weird thing. Like, you know, you've always imagined that you would just love to have a room that was heavy ass, like crazy, Scandi style, for argument's sake, like all decked out. And for whatever reason, you just kind of dance around it like it's almost too good to be true, or like you're like, oh, I can't have that. I can't have what I want, or something. Do you come up against that in residential?
Yes, and I think the way to combat that is to have someone who is confident. Like, you need to find a designer that speaks to you first off. I think that's going to be the most important part. Like, you want to work with someone who's going to see through all of the things that you're telling them and find something that is more unique. So I think that's one of my main missions, is to make sure that people know that I'm their biggest champion. At the end of the day, I'm there to champion them. I'm not there to, blow wind up my skirt, even though, I have big ideas of where I'm going to end up, but I don't particularly mind how I end up there. It is more so around how I can impact someone else. Anyway, that's beside the point, but it's finding a designer that you align with, who can understand you, who is then confident in bringing out what you want. And then it's the flip side of that is also, having someone who is there to champion you, to go, hey, you know what? You do deserve that peacock room. Why don't we do teal carpet? Why don't we do peacock, embossed wallpaper to the ceiling, and then we'll do silk wallpaper on the ceiling with a Murano chandelier? Like, why can't we? Well, who is telling you no? Who is stopping you at the end of the day? Like, I feel maybe this is also from like childhood things, is like, no one can tell you that you don't deserve something. At the end of the day, who is holding you back? It is only yourself. And you need to find someone who is there that is not holding you back for the benefit of themselves, but pushing you forward to like do it together.
Oh, amen, sister. Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste. Jai Guru Dev. Yeah, my God, 100%. I could not agree more. And I can feel that your clients are in good hands, which, isn't always the case. And, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Like, sometimes situations, like you see interiors, because like I find interiors, well, because my background is comms, and I've had this theory, like, we're talking to everything and everything's talking to us. I don't know if you play this game, but one of my favorite games, Chris and I do this, is when you're out, like, especially like hospitality, you're out for dinner or a cafe, and you start reading the environment and you see like a really over-engineered piece of like Banquet seating, and you can see it, and the beautiful welds, and then you can see it's got this really elaborate upholstery, and then you look around and everything else is absolutely is from, a hardware store off the shelf. And then the story is telling me we accidentally sunk all our money on the Banquet seating and forgot, something went funny. And I just love reading that. Do you do that as well?
We do that. Pat and I are the worst when we go out to places, because he's looking at the buildability and the design essence of how they've built it. And then I'm looking at the visual aesthetic and how all the materials are meeting. So whenever we go out for dinner, it just ends up into a business meeting on how they constructed the table. And did they do a good job with the table? Like, do you reckon the table is... And I've worked so many years in hospitality that my brain goes to the functionality of the space. Do you really want the staff walking past the toilet like that with the food? Like, wouldn't you do the door the other way? Couldn't you have done, like, the flow of the space is just weird. Why is the pass so high? No one is reaching up that high. Anyway, so yeah. So
no, this is the obsessive data. I feel so seen. Because it's like we're designing our kitchen at the moment, and I'm like, and the architect's like, we'll put the dishwasher there. I'm like, but which way are we bringing in the dishes? Like, where's the entry point and how they get washed, and where's the exit point and the cupboard drawers? And, like, I want to be able to pivot on one spot and do everything. Yeah. I don't have to walk around anything, and I'm trying a little bit too much of how my mind works, but that's the rub. Like, once you get it right, the whole environment harmonizes.
Exactly. That's like one of the things that I really want to do, is move into, hospitality design, because I just have such a passion for how a space should like flow and move by working in them for so long. I'm like, it can look beautiful, but it can also like look beautiful and work like a good horse. Like, you're riding that thing, and you're riding that thing hard, and she is like hitting all of those points of, pivot on here to get the cutlery here, but you've also got the water station there, because by the time you've got the menus and you're walking down, you want to grab the water and something else by the
Yeah, no, I hear you. And to add to that, if you haven't already, get into aeroplane, like have a look, see me do a tour of an aeroplane, commercial, or even private. So I used to be a flight attendant with Emirates in a former life. And galleys, because aeroplanes it's all operational, it's all commercially driven, and it has to stay in the sky. So it has to not kill us, can't have knives flying around. It's got to be lightweight, and you've got to be able to serve anywhere from, I don't know, 300 to 700 people in however many minutes or hours. So the practicality level of hospitality design within a plane is next level. Like, it's so well done, and no one talks about it because it's weird. But I think if I could, like, from one neurotic person to another, you're welcome.
That is so true. I'm actually like picturing it all, and I'm like, that's really hot. Like all of their all their little trays with the little locks, and they go.
Yeah, and anodized aluminium. Ooh,
oh, right.
And the 4-wheel spin of the trolleys. Oh,
stop it.
So lovely. But they also have these crazy practical design features. Well, not design. Well, they're designed in. Like, so when you're on your jump seat, if you're taking off, you're meant to put your head forward. Not crazy forward, but just leaning forward, because if you hit the brakes, it will lessen your whiplash. But if you're in the jump seat with your back going the other way, facing the cabin, you have to have your head back so that if you hit it, you're already there. Like, they think of these details. Like, when you're flying at night, the lights go down.
Yeah.
Even if you were to do an emergency landing, the lights would stay down, so your eyes are already adjusted to the outside to jump down the rafts.
Oh my God.
I'm so grateful you're into this.
I am into that. We should design an airplane. That'd be so fun.
Yes. Oh my God. You call me, I'll fly down, pardon the pun. Do you know, I don't know much about this, but I did read that Kim Kardashian's plane's lining is cashmere.
Stop it.
No. I know. Who even knew that was a thing?
I was just thinking of leather inlays, and I was like,
Yes. Oh, and what's a plane without any? You got to have that walnut.
Right.
Yeah, I love it.
Oh, one day I would just love to design a yacht, because I love Below Deck, that TV show, and like yachts, when they're designed properly, again, they're like an airplane, because you've got to have all the sequence of all the spots, like especially in a galley, in a kitchen, like, especially sailing yachts, you've got to have all the little pop things that come out, so then all the coloring is just good.
Yeah, because with that, I assume it's the same on a yacht, but like in private flying, with the cutlery drawer, it's got the silhouette pre-drilled into the insert, so the forks all just go perfectly up like that. The spoons all, in one solid line. So, and then it's lined in felt, so you don't hear like it
that
just.
Is hard.
Isn't that? Oh, I just love it. Efficiencies.
Yeah, good design with efficiency.
I know, because then you've nailed it. I know, and that's like the ultimate design challenge, isn't it? Because you're like, because vignettes, I love to do vignettes, around the house and stuff. That's fun. But the design challenge is like making 3 things that don't want to go together, like massaging them in. It's a fun challenge.
That is so true. Yeah, I love a vignette. Yeah.
We've taught our 10-year-old to do vignettes with her Lego. She's like, this is my under the sea vignette.
That is so good. I love that. That is, yeah.
She's a hoot. Now, since talking about your biggest thrills, what's been, if you're willing to share, it's a bit personal, but your biggest struggle joining the design industry?
I think my biggest struggle is the expectation that I have on myself. That's been my biggest struggle. It's not so much like we all have imposter syndrome, so I think we're just all accustomed to dealing with that day in, day out. So that is a given. But I have just like such a drive and a want and a need, and like this is where I'm going, and I am like full throttle, just like bulldozer all the way through. And my husband said to me the other day, he's like, you're just like one person, right? You don't have a studio of people. You're like aiming for there, and you're just like here because you can't just like calm down. So I think my biggest detriment and hardest challenge to myself is my ambition is too big for the capacity that I have, and I need to remember that it's not a sprint, that it's a marathon, but I'm still sprinting on the marathon, but it's a marathon. Anyway, I'm just like, that is my biggest challenge, of controlling the passion and the need and the want and the explosion to what I can capably do as one person still entering the industry.
Got you. I can understand that's a lot. How do you stay creative fit as well amongst that? Like, what's your method?
I don't know what the answer to that is, because I feel like I just embody all of it and I won't stop embodying all of it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, someone asked me, they're like, what do you do for a hobby? And I'm like, I read Vogue and I make material boards and I look at fashion to know what's coming out on the runway to influence my interiors. They're like, that is not resting. And I'm like, yeah, but that's my resting. That's like what I like to do when I'm not doing anything, but it's still like working. So yeah, I embody all of it, because there is no point in which I'm not creative. I haven't lost the creativeness yet.
You've never been unfit to get fit.
Yeah, no.
Got
I don't
you.
think I've ever.
You live it.
Yeah, I live and breathe it on every level possible.
Which I think maybe is the key to creative fitness. It's just use it or lose it. Like it's an infinite source. So if you're using it, it's like a tap.
Yeah. And it's just making sure that you channel that in the right ways, I feel. Of like, when it's hot, you do it. When it's not hot, don't push it.
Yeah, right. I love that. It sounds like a great intuitive way to approach it.
I try. I listen to myself sometimes and I'm like, you should take your own advice. Don't we all do that? We all do that.
That's what advice is for, passing on to other people. It's useless to ourselves.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, dream project, what would you love to do?
Like I said before, there's like no, I don't have a dream project as such. I just want to do it all. But I think like I would just love to work on a mid-century gem.
Australian mid-century?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Like restoring that back to its like former beauty, and then but doing it in a way that like, because of that time period, they were using materials in interesting new ways. And I think that's what keeps it so fresh and, even still relevant to this day. So I feel like my approach to a mid-century gem would be to redo it, but to take that philosophy of using materials that are now but in a really interesting way, or taking the materials that they use and then bringing it in a more contemporary way that still speaks to the essence of it. That makes
fancy.
sense.
I love that. I get what you mean, like in a different way. But so we're doing a Victorian terrace in Paddington. It's our house, and we only moved into it last year, and we've had to move out. It's being renovated. Blah blah blah. But the design direction is neoclassical, because personally, I cannot stand ye modern box on ye old house.
Yeah,
it drives. I'm like anyone, like everybody wants. It's like watching Escape to the Country. Everybody wants the cottage. Everyone secretly wants the barn conversion.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we picked neoclassical because I can't, like I have this analogy that, if the house is roast beef and you want to add on to it, you would add roast potato.
Yes.
They're delicious and it matches. Equally delicious is chocolate pudding, but you can't put chocolate pudding with roast beef because that's weird. It doesn't work. Yes, so, we all love chocolate pudding. And these are my bars against my little hands. You can do whatever you want, each to their own. But I love that idea that you've got of contemporary, like the respect and the dovetail together.
Yeah, you've always got to have that respect. And then I guess like another thing is, we all just really want to bloody design a boutique hotel.
Oh, how gorgeous. No, I didn't know this. So like a 20 room kind of hotel?
Yeah, that would just be so ideal. That's what I won the Dulux 37 Colour Awards for, was like my boutique hotel that I based in Tassie, which was just like all inspired off Mount Kenenyi, which is Mount Wellington, and how the colours change and the eucalyptus trees change on that, and the sunsets and all of that, and then mirroring that into the room itself and using really bold, vibrant colours. But I don't know, I just like, staying at Ace Hotel and Melbourne Place, like Kennedy Nolan and Flack have just done that so bloody well. And like how to just take a space that we're so used to just like walking in and not having any connection to then just transforming them into spaces that you just don't really want to ever leave. Like, it's just so amazing that design has the ability to do that. So I want to have it. It's like, I want to just have my turn at that and then see where it leads. Like, yeah, that was.
Yes. I love that. And that's kind of fun. I never thought about that with hotel design, because retail design is you go in and you shop the store, and the store can be beautiful, absolutely. And then there's residential, which is where people unfurl and it's their home. And hotel design is you can rent a lounge room. So you can, a client, a customer, a hotel person, a guest can come in and sample this lounge room. So, do you know what I mean? Like I can get that. That's very cool.
So I feel like just boutique hotels marry those two worlds together. And also, like, I really want this boutique hotel to have a bar because, like I said before, I just really want to design a bar. Like, that's just.
You're in the right spot. Melbourne hospitality is, Sydney hospitality, but Melbourne hospitality is great. And they've had a real boom of very la-di-da fit outs.
Yeah. I feel like hospitality is like real hot and where it's at the moment. So yeah, I'm manifesting not a boutique hotel because I don't think I'd be able to do that so early in my career. That's like a 5-10 year goal. But yeah, manifesting like a bar or like a little, restaurant space. Like that's what I'm dreaming of coming soon. Please.
Oh, how gorgeous. Yes. Well, and so it is, and it is so. You've put your order in. Ting.
Here, universe, please.
And one last thing I need to ask you about is, as I understand it, you've got a service that you work with clients to help them with colour?
Yes. So one of the things, because I understand that, doing a full interior design of a house can sometimes just be really overwhelming and not everyone has the money for that. That's a really big outlay at the end of the day. But because I'm so passionate and I just really want to help people, there's a few designers that actually do this. So it's not unique or, singular to me, but offering color consults because, at the end of the day, say you've just bought an apartment and that apartment's just like no soul, because most of them aren't, okay? Like, let's be honest. Some of them, they do a good job. Other time they don't. But you've just bought this apartment. It's all white walls. It's got some really cute character to it, but like, you yourself just really want to add some pizzazz to it. Like, you would just want to make it feel like home. And color is just such an easy way of introducing that and bringing mood and bringing like sophistication and atmosphere, that and lighting, obviously. But a color consult is, one of the services that I offer, because essentially I come in and they give me a mood board and they tell me what they want to feel in the space. And then I develop the color story to roll throughout. So, for instance, they might be like, I really just want to have a romantic bedroom. And I'm like, all right, this is what we're going to do. And then in hope that they've really enjoyed that aspect of the service that I, provide, that they're like, okay, so now I've done the color. Well, let's do like a little couple of materials or some curation. So then it's like a taste of me, but I'm helping them. And then hopefully they're like, oh, we need more of that. So it's like a little tasting plate. What's that? A little canapé.
Yes, an entry point as well, especially to gain trust. Because like we were saying earlier, it's residential, like it's your home. And then, and because rightly or wrongly, we're raised with shame. And so, if you have a love affair with Hello Kitty, and you're, 65 years old, it can be a bit awkward to say, I just want Hello Kitty everything, if you don't mind. Not many people are going to fess up to that. So I love Hello Kitty. But I have a 10-year-old, so I can just plaster it on her.
Yeah. But I guess developing that relationship so then they feel comfortable with you of going, hey, like, I know this might sound really weird, but I really love Hello Kitty. And I'd go, okay, cool. So let's take the essence of Hello Kitty. And instead of, oversaturating the space in Hello Kitty pink, we could just do a variant of that still makes you feel happy being in and gives a nod to that, but doesn't overwhelm people when you have them over.
Oh, clever. I love that. And you had me at Hello Kitty pink. It's my happy place.
I'd have to do my research because I'm not fully across Hello Kitty, but I would.
Oh, God. Sanrio. It's a lot. And just to wrap with, Anything, any design styles or anything you're crushing on or you're seeing coming out of the ether right now?
I want to say that butter yellow is having its comeback, like 100% having its comeback. I had done a mood board a year ago with butter yellow in it, and then Pantone came out with the Drew Barrymore yellow color, and I was like, I see you, Pantone, you're looking at my mood board. So totally not, but like that's I like to think that I'm setting really big trends. I'm definitely not. But what I've seen on, because I'm an avid fashion enthusiast, you would say, that would be my other obsession. I've been watching all of the runways from Paris, and now they're going into Milan. Tassels. I reckon tassels and long fur, like, you know, those space furniture does it quite a lot. B&B Italia, or is it, I think, no, it's not B&B Italia. They're more smooth. But there's a brand at Space that they do all of the really high pile fabrics that feel like fur when you touch them, but they're all synthetic. I feel like that's going to have a really big comeback. I have a feeling.
Interesting. I wonder what that's stitched into. Because that feels a bit Game of Thrones, but that's long gone. So it must, I wonder, maybe tactility, sensuality.
I feel like it could be sensuality, but also tactility of, like, one of the things that I just recently bought with my first paycheck from Nicholas Gertler, because we both love Devil Wears Prada. I bought myself a vintage Prada bag that is covered in leather tassels, because I was like, hands down, this is what I need in my life. But also I feel like there's a romanticism to using drapery at the moment. Like, if you've seen, you know, Fiona Lynch's kitchen with the drapery, you know, covering the island bench, and then BMDO with the fabric lighting. I just feel like we're adding a lot more layers, yes, but also softness to interiors. So I feel like that's heavy. And maybe that is what you said before, the sensuality of spaces and wanting to feel, you know, like we're all wrapped in like a French, you know, boudoir or something, you know, like
boudoir. Yeah. I get it. I agree. And I think it's also a pendulum swing, because we have been in very masculine interiors. Like, we're talking about the 90s and then cast concrete brutalism, this irregardless if it's masculine or feminine, but we've certainly been in a anti-soft environment for some time. And because I've been championing curtains throughout the past 3 or 4 years, I'm like, curtains are coming back, my friends, curtains are coming back. And curtains are tricky as well, because no one really builds enough troughs, because the top of them are ugly. No one builds enough bulkhead thingy.
So annoying. All the designs that I've ever worked on, I'm like, curtains are like number one. We need good window finishes in here, because like just the softness and there is something so beautiful the way that fabric falls.
And then the light comes through it.
Stop. Don't put your hands out right now. Like,
oh my gosh.
As well as there's that scene in The Great Gatsby where the window billows the curtains, but like imprinted in mind forever. Like,
just, you know, in one word, romance, drapes too long for the window.
Yeah, bingo, called it.
Yeah, it is just resplendent. And you know what else it is, I think, as well? It signifies, especially that look, signifies abundance.
Yes.
You have so much fabric, it gathers on the floor, abundance. And that can be terrifying, especially, you know, in different cultures. Like our culture, abundance, if people have a funny relationship with abundance, it's seen as greed, or, you know, like we're very applauded when we're frugal in our culture in Australia. And so to have so much curtain that it pools on the floor, like that's just
good,
clutch your pearls.
I'm just like, yes. I have that quote that I was
fabulous.
This is the quote, and it's from The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which is on SBS, and I highly recommend, because it just has the best fashion, but it is also just a really well-written script where even watching it, you just don't want to look at your phone because you're so engrossed in what they're saying. That is good. That is good writing. Anyway, last episode, she's gone through her whole kind of life thing, and we're at the peak point, and she goes, I want a big life. I want to experience everything. I want to break every single rule there is. They say ambition is an unattractive trait in a woman. Maybe. But you know what's really unattractive? Waiting around for something to happen. Staring out a window thinking the life that you should be living is out there somewhere, but not being willing to open the door and go get it. Even if someone tells you you can't, being a coward is only cute in The Wizard of Oz.
Stunning. Excellent. Nailed it.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. Well, thank you, Miss Ruby, for joining us. It has been an absolute delight. I have loved speaking to you.
Thank you. I have really enjoyed our conversation. I hope that someone gets something out of it because it was real good.
How could they not?
Right?